Okay, so you sent us a really interesting piece this time. It's
Mm,
a review article, right, from the Educational Psychology Review.
that's the one.
And the title kind of jumped out at me. Combining retrieval practice with elaborative encoding. Complementary or redundant?
Yeah, it's a great question, isn't it? Because both of these strategies, well, they're pretty powerful on their own.
Totally. So the question is, what happens when you put them together? Do they boost each other, or, like the title says, do they kind of step on each other's toes?
Exactly. And that's really relevant for, well, anyone trying to learn more effectively,
Mhm.
which is most of us, I think.
For sure. So that's our mission for this deep dive,
Right.
right? To unpack this, see what the research actually says about combining them.
Yep. Look at the potential benefits, maybe any drawbacks, and figure out what this means for, practical learning.
Okay, sounds good. So let's start with the basics. Retrieval practice. What exactly are we talking about there?
Right. So retrieval practice is essentially, well, pulling information out of your memory
Uh-huh.
actively.
Like quizzing yourself.
Exactly. Or trying to recall key concepts without looking at your book, doing practice questions,
Mhm.
that kind of thing. It's that active recall process.
And the evidence for this one is, it's pretty overwhelming, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's one of the most sort of consistently effective learning strategies researchers have found.
Yeah, the article mentions like real enthusiasm from educators and researchers, and it points to some big reviews backing this up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they mentioned a big meta-analysis and a systematic review, too. Basically, lots of studies show it works across different subjects, different types of material.
Yeah.
It just helps things stick.
Okay, so retrieval practice, good. Active recall is key.
Got it.
Now, what about the other piece? Elaborative encoding.
Right, so elaborative encoding is less about pulling stuff out and more about how you put it in the first place, but like deeply.
Deeply, how so?
It means really processing the information, not just passively reading it, but connecting it to things you already know,
Wow.
giving it meaning, finding relationships, maybe creating mental images, making it more than just isolated facts.
So linking it to your own experiences or explaining it in your own words, maybe.
Exactly. That's the core idea. Making the information richer and more connected in your mind from the start. And the article specifically looks at combining retrieval with what they call potent elaboration methods.
Right, the heavy hitters of elaboration. Okay, so we have these two powerful techniques. The article then explores sort of what might happen when you combine them, theoretically.
Yeah, they lay out a few possibilities. One is that they could be complementary.
Meaning they help each other out?
Kind of.
Yeah.
The idea is that elaborating first might, say, improve the initial learning, the encoding part. So the memory trace is stronger or richer to begin with,
Okay.
which then makes the later retrieval practice, easier or more effective.
Uh-huh.
Or maybe the elaboration makes the stuff you retrieve feel more meaningful once you pull it out.
So, like, building a better foundation makes the whole structure stronger when you test it.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah. A strong initial encoding potentially helps the retrieval process later.
Makes sense. What's another theoretical angle?
Well, related to that, they talk about elaboration, maybe catalyzing retrieval practice effects.
Catalyzing, like speeding it up or making it stronger.
Exactly. If you have a really solid, well-connected understanding because you elaborated well beforehand,
Mm-hmm.
then the act of retrieving that information might be even more beneficial for cementing it long-term. It's like the retrieval gets a turbo boost from the strong start.
Interesting. So good prep work makes the practice session even more productive.
Potentially, yeah. That's one hypothesis.
But then there's the flip side, the redundant part of the title.
Right. The redundancy argument is basically that the mental work involved in both processes might be too similar.
How so?
Well, think about what you do when you elaborate. You're organizing ideas, making connections, thinking about relationships. And when you successfully retrieve information, especially complex stuff, you might be doing similar mental organizing, right?
Oh.
Reconstructing the knowledge.
I see. So if you try to do both at the exact same time,
The idea is you might not get much added benefit. It's like the cognitive processes overlap too much, and doing one effectively might already achieve what the other one does.
right, like trying to explain something deeply while you're also desperately trying to remember the core facts might be too much cognitive load or just inefficient.
Something like that. So those are the main theoretical tensions: complementary, catalyzing, or redundant.
Okay, so that sets the stage. But this review didn't just theorize, right? It looked at actual studies. What did the existing research tend to show?
Yeah, they dug into the literature quite a bit. They looked at studies using different kinds of learning,
Like what?
Well, they grouped them. Some focused on what they called everyday learning tasks,
Hmm.
things like remembering people's names.
Oh, okay. Practical stuff.
Yeah. And then educationally relevant tasks.
Yeah.
That's more like learning vocabulary, maybe paired associates, or understanding longer texts, like from a textbook.
So a pretty broad range. Did they find differences depending on what people were learning?
That's a really interesting point.
Yeah.
While the main trend pointed one way, there were definitely nuances.
Uh-huh.
For instance, with simpler things like learning word pairs.
Yeah.
The benefit of elaborating before testing often seemed quite clear-cut in the studies they reviewed.
Okay.
But for more complex material, like, say, understanding a whole chapter,
Mm-hmm.
it seemed like the type of elaboration really mattered and how well it connected with the material.
Hmm.
Just doing any old elaboration wasn't always the key. It had to be meaningful for that specific content.
That makes total sense. It's not just elaborating for the sake of it. But overall, looking across all these different types of studies, was there a main conclusion?
Yes, there was a pretty consistent finding that emerged,
Which was?
that adding elaborative encoding before you do retrieval practice generally gives learning a significant boost.
Ah, so the timing is the key thing.
Exactly. That seemed to be the critical factor in many studies. Elaborate first, then test yourself.
Not try to do both at the same time.
Generally, no. The review suggests the main benefits come when elaboration precedes the retrieval attempt. Do them concurrently. Well, that's where the redundancy issue might pop up more often.
Okay, that feels really practical. Elaborate, then retrieve. So can we talk specifics? What counts as elaborative encoding? What could someone actually do?
Yeah, there are lots of techniques. The article mentions things like creating vivid mental imagery.
Picturing it in your head.
Right. Or
Yeah.
using mnemonics, acronyms, rhymes, that sort of thing. Those are classic elaboration tools.
Okay.
Also, really consciously connecting new information to what you already know. Asking yourself, how does this fit with X? Or is this like Y?
Finding those links?
Yes, and generating explanations, trying to explain the concept in your own words, maybe even out loud. That forces deeper processing.
Like the Feynman technique, almost.
Kind of, yeah. And they also mentioned the keyword method, particularly for things like vocabulary, creating a mental link or image, connecting the new word to a familiar one.
So lots of active meaning-making strategies. Now, you mentioned that doing them simultaneously might be redundant. The article's notes section touches on why, right?
Yeah, it digs into that timing aspect a bit more. It suggests that maybe some of the things that happen after you try to retrieve something.
Uh-huh. When
Mhm.
you go back to check your answer or restudy.
Exactly. That restudying phase, especially after a test attempt, might naturally involve some processes that are quite similar to elaboration.
How so?
Well, if you just tried to recall something and couldn't quite get it, when you look back at the material, you're probably not just passively rereading. You're likely focusing on the tricky parts, trying to organize it better in your head, seeing the connections you missed.
Ah, okay. You're actively trying to fix the gaps the test revealed.
Precisely. And that organizing, connecting, sense-making process. It
Got it.
sounds a lot like elaboration, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does.
So the idea is that testing itself might sort of um, potentiate or enhance that subsequent restudying, making it inherently more elaborative. They call this test-potentiated learning.
So the test primes you to elaborate more effectively afterwards.
That's the thinking. The struggle during retrieval might highlight what needs deeper processing during the review. So doing formal elaboration beforehand is beneficial, but trying to do it during retrieval or relying on it instead of focused restudy after retrieval might be less effective or redundant with what naturally happens anyway.
And they also mentioned something about the text itself, right? Sometimes the material is already kind of elaborative.
Yeah, they pointed to a study where the text used was apparently very well structured, very coherent, with lots of connections already built in.
Okay.
In cases like that, the material itself might already be prompting deeper, more connected processing as you read it, potentially reducing the added benefit of separate elaboration techniques.
So the nature of the material matters too. Okay, this is all making a lot of sense. Let's bring it back to the listener. What are the big implications here for someone trying to learn something?
I think the main implication is pretty clear and actionable.
Yeah.
If you want to maximize your learning, really consider incorporating active elaboration before you start quizzing yourself or doing practice problems.
So don't just read and test. Read, then maybe summarize in your own words, or draw a diagram, or think of examples. then test.
Exactly. Take that extra step to consciously process the material deeply, make those connections before you move to the retrieval phase.
And the research suggests this isn't just wasted effort, it actually pays
It
off.
seems to. By elaborating first, you're likely creating a stronger, more interconnected memory trace,
Uh-huh.
which should make retrieval easier and more successful. And, as we discussed, that successful retrieval itself is powerful for long-term memory. So you're potentially getting a double benefit.
Okay, this is super useful. So, boiling it all down from this deep dive, the headline finding is really about the sequence, isn't it?
Absolutely. Combining them can be really good, maybe even complementary, but the evidence strongly points towards a specific order.
Elaborate first, retrieve second.
That seems to be the most effective sequence based on the research reviewed in this article. That pre-retrieval elaboration really seems to set the stage for better learning.
Okay, so maybe a final thought then for our listeners to chew on.
Yeah,
How could you personally build in some of these elaboration techniques before you hit the flashcards or the practice questions? What specific step could you add to your routine?
that's a great question for reflection. Maybe it's just taking 5 minutes after reading a section to jot down the main ideas in your own words, or quickly sketching out how the concepts relate.
Right. Or even just pausing to think, okay, how does this connect to what I learned last week?
Mhm. And it's worth reflecting on past experiences, too. When did studying feel really effective? Were you perhaps doing some form of elaboration without even calling it that? Experimenting a little is key.
Definitely. Because ultimately, understanding these cognitive gears, how elaboration and retrieval work together or don't be helpier, it really can give you more control over your own learning.
Absolutely. It empowers you to study smarter, not just harder.
Well, this has been fascinating. Thanks for breaking that down.
My pleasure. It's really practical stuff.
It really is. Thanks everyone for joining us on this deep dive.